Ladies and gentlemen, let's make one thing clear. When he let you go, it wasn't a tragedy. It was a plot twist. One that's setting up the comeback story of your life. See, people don't always walk away because you're too much. Sometimes they walk away because they're not enough. Not enough to recognize what's rare. Not enough to rise to your level. And definitely not enough to match the energy you brought to the table every single day. And yet you sat there wondering, was it me? No, it wasn't you. It was the wrong person holding the right thing and not knowing what to do with it. You were not a project. You were not a phase. You were not a placeholder. You were the real deal. The kind of person that brings peace, not drama. Support, not stress. And adventure, not chaos. Let me ask you something. If someone walks out on a diamond, who loses? The diamond or the person too blind to see the sparkle? He may think he gained freedom, but he actually lost privilege. The privilege of growing next to you, of building something real with someone who shows up, who cares, who knows how to love with depth. And maybe he's fine now, maybe he's laughing, maybe he's with someone else. But one day, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but one day, he's gonna look around and realize you're not replaceable. He'll miss the way you remembered the little things, the way you celebrated his wins like they were your own, the way you kept him grounded when life got loud. And when that moment comes, he won't just miss you, he'll regret you. But by then it'll be too late. Because you'll be glowing in places he can't reach anymore. So don't chase closure, become it. Be the upgrade, not the echo. And remember, he let you go. Big mistake, thank you. You know, people talk a lot about rejection, how it stings, how it leaves you questioning everything. Your worth, your beauty, your intelligence. But here's what no one tells you. Sometimes what feels like rejection is actually revelation. When someone lets you go, your first instinct might be to internalize it. You think, was I not good enough? Was I too emotional, too available, too much? But the truth is, you weren't rejected. You were revealed. You see, when someone exits your life, it doesn't mean you failed. It means you've been freed. Freed from trying to shrink yourself to fit into someone else's limited capacity. Freed from negotiating for the bare minimum. Freed from convincing someone to choose what should have been obvious. It's like this: if you walk into a gallery and someone rushes past a masterpiece without even glancing at it, that doesn't lower the value of the art. It just tells you that person doesn't have the eye to appreciate it. And that's what happened with him. He didn't see you, not truly, not the way someone who deserves you will. He was in the room with something extraordinary and treated it like it was ordinary. And that's not your shame. That's his shortcoming. You can't take someone else's blind spot and make it your burden. There are people in this world who will only understand your value once you've walked away. Once they feel the absence of your energy, your care, your laughter, your steady, beautiful presence. And I know there's part of you that wishes he'd seen it while he still had you. That maybe if you'd done one more thing, said it differently, been a little less open or a little more distant, maybe then he'd have stayed. But let's be real. If you have to change your light to keep someone around, you're not keeping them, you're losing yourself. And you weren't put on this earth to dim. The fact that he let you go isn't a reflection of your inadequacy. It's a reflection of his unreadiness. Some people don't know how to hold something healthy because all they've ever known is chaos. Some people can't handle real love because it exposes their lack of depth. And some, well, they confuse comfort with complacency. They chase the next shiny thing, thinking excitement lies in the new, not realizing excitement also lives in connection, in loyalty, in depth. But that kind of beauty, you have to be brave enough to stay to experience it. He wasn't brave, he was bored, or scared, or simply not built for what you bring. And listen, I know it still hurts, even knowing this. You're human, you cared. Maybe you still do. But there's power in knowing that just because something hurts doesn't mean it was right. Just because you loved him doesn't mean he was your person. Love alone isn't enough. You need someone who meets your energy, who chooses you daily, who doesn't flinch at your fire. So if he let you go, let that be the moment you stop waiting for someone to return and start remembering who you are. You're not someone who needs to be earned. You're someone who needs to be recognized. And one day he might see it. Maybe he'll be sitting with someone else, trying to recreate what he had with you, realizing too late that it wasn't the relationship, it was you. The way you made him feel understood. The way you showed up. The way you didn't just love, you lifted. But by then you'll be somewhere else. Mentally, emotionally, maybe physically. With someone who doesn't need to lose you to realize what they've got. He let you go. Big mistake. People like to frame breakups as freedom. He just needed space. He wasn't ready for commitment. He felt trapped. You'll hear it in different forms, but the message is always the same. He needed to let go for himself. And you know what? That sounds noble. It sounds self-aware. But let's talk about what it really is. In many cases, he didn't choose freedom. He chose to avoid growth. He didn't walk away because he was too big for the relationship. He walked away because the relationship asked him to rise, and he wasn't willing to do that work. See, people have this idea that staying with one person means you're giving something up, like commitment means the end of adventure, or loyalty means life becomes dull. They think that love is supposed to excite them constantly, like it's a ride at an amusement park, and the moment it slows down, they hop off and go looking for the next thrill. But here's what he doesn't realize. The real thrill isn't in chasing the next thing. It's in choosing something real and digging deep. It's in the quiet moments where someone gets you without you saying a word. It's in the kind of laughter you only share with someone who truly knows you. It's in the comfort of not having to wear a mask. And you gave him that. You gave him peace. But some people confuse peace with boredom because they're addicted to chaos. They mistake your stability for predictability, not realizing that what they're calling boring is actually rare. He was standing in the presence of something extraordinary: emotional safety, consistency, depth. And he thought, maybe I'm missing out on something more exciting. So he went searching for something more attention, more options, more ego strokes. And in doing so, he walked away from the more that actually matters: more connection, more depth, more love, more of someone who would have had his back even on the days he didn't deserve it. You were willing to stand by him through the uncomfortable parts, through the growth, through the stillness. But he saw the gift and misread it as a trap. Let me tell you something that doesn't get said enough. When someone walks away from a partner who genuinely cares, who shows up, who brings peace and loyalty, they're not stepping into freedom, they're stepping into folly. They're trading gold for glitter. They're mistaking excitement for connection. And yeah, in the short term, it might look like they're thriving. They're out there smiling. They've moved on. Or at least they're pretending to. But the truth is, he's going to start noticing that the noise outside doesn't fill the silence inside. That the rush of something new can't replicate the feeling of being truly known. And while he's out there chasing what else is out there, you need to remember what you brought to the table. Because here's the wild part. When you bring stability, loyalty, depth, and emotional availability into someone's life, and they walk away, they didn't set themselves free. They just failed to recognize the blessing they had. You weren't the cage. You were the clarity. You were the calm after years of emotional storms. And just because he couldn't handle that, doesn't mean you need to doubt it. People think losing someone is about the person who left, but sometimes the bigger loss is felt by the one who walks away too soon, before they understood what they were walking away from. And one day, he'll realize it. Not in a dramatic, romantic moment. It might happen in the smallest way. Maybe he'll laugh at something and turn to share it, only to realize it's not you beside him anymore. Or he'll be having a tough day and instinctively want to call the one person who always knew what to say, but he can't. Because you're not there. You're not there to cheer him on. You're not there to calm him down. You're not there to love him better than he loved himself. And when that moment comes, it'll hit him. He let go of something real, chasing something temporary. And that big mistake. Let's talk about something important. Something that too many people, especially those who love deeply, forget. You weren't meant to be a project. You weren't sent into someone's life to be fixed, tested, tolerated, or trained. You were meant to be appreciated, seen, valued, pursued, not worked on. But sometimes we get caught in a dynamic where it feels like we're constantly having to prove we're worthy of love, of commitment, of effort. And before we know it, the relationship becomes a performance instead of a partnership. You find yourself thinking, if I just do more, say less, shrink here, glow there, maybe then he'll choose me. Maybe then he'll finally see what he has. But here's the truth. The right person doesn't need convincing. They don't need to be coached on how to love you. They don't need a step-by-step guide on how not to take you for granted. They don't need to be pushed to appreciate what's already right in front of them. You were the prize from the beginning. Not because you're perfect, but because of your heart, your energy, the way you love, the way you care. The way you show up with the kind of presence that makes people feel safe and inspired at the same time. And yet some people treat that presence like a training ground for their ego. They see your love as something to test. They push buttons to see if you'll break. They pull away to see if you'll chase. They create problems just to see how far they can go before you stop forgiving them. That's not love. That's control. That's insecurity. That's someone who hasn't done the work on themselves trying to feel powerful by making you feel uncertain. You weren't put here to be someone's emotional rehab center. You weren't born to babysit a grown man's immaturity or make excuses for why he can't step up. You were meant to build something with someone, not carry it for them. And here's what happens when someone sees you as a project. You start to doubt yourself. You begin to think, maybe I do need to be fixed. Maybe I'm not lovable as I am. Maybe I'm the problem. But what if the only problem was that you were with someone who couldn't recognize a masterpiece when he was standing in front of it? There are people who will make you feel like you're too much simply because they are not enough. Not enough in their confidence. Not enough in their emotional maturity. Not enough in their capacity to give what they keep taking. And that's not your job to fix. You were never supposed to audition for love. You were supposed to receive it. Because what you bring, the warmth, the depth, the loyalty, it's not standard. It's rare, and rare things don't need to be repackaged or toned down. They need to be honored. The right person won't look at your fire and try to put it out. They'll sit by it. They'll protect it. They'll warm their hands by it and say, this is what I've been looking for. But he didn't say that. He tried to make you feel like you weren't enough, or like you had to do more to earn his attention. Maybe he even made you believe love was something you had to earn, like a reward at the end of a test. But love isn't a test, it's a choice. It's a decision someone makes to show up every day with presence and care. And if he couldn't make that decision, if he needed to play games, pull away, or treat you like something he had to fix, then he never deserved you in the first place. You didn't lose. You just outgrew the version of you that tolerated being treated like a problem instead of a person. Because you're not here to be somebody's upgrade project. You are the upgrade. And if he couldn't see that, big mistake. It's easy to think that when someone walks away, they've taken something from you. They've stolen your time, your energy, your love. And it feels like that, right? You gave your all, you showed up. And now you're left wondering, did they even realize what they had? Did they see the value you brought to the table? Did they understand that you were more than just a passing moment in their life? Here's the thing though, your light doesn't go out when someone walks away. In fact, it often shines brighter. You see, when people leave, it's not a reflection of you. It's a reflection of them, of their inability to see the beauty, the depth, the commitment you were offering. But just because they can't recognize it, doesn't mean that the glow you bring has diminished. If anything, it's freed to shine brighter, clearer, and more powerfully than before. The mistake that so many of us make is thinking that someone else's departure means we've lost something. But we haven't lost anything. In fact, we've gained something. Space. Space to grow, space to rediscover ourselves, and most importantly, space to shine. You weren't meant to be a shadow in someone's life. You weren't meant to be dim to fit into a relationship that didn't value your full potential. You were always meant to shine, boldly, brilliantly, unapologetically. But sometimes it takes the departure of someone who couldn't appreciate that shine for you to realize how much of it you had all along. We spend so much time focusing on the absence. We look at the empty space they've left behind, the silence in the places they once filled, And yes, that silence can feel deafening, but what we often overlook is that silence isn't emptiness. It's a canvas waiting for you to paint your own picture, to fill it with everything that you've been holding back while you were too busy trying to fit into someone else's narrative. You don't need anyone's validation to shine. You don't need anyone's approval to step into your power. The truth is, the world doesn't need you to shrink to make space for someone else. It needs you to show up as your full, unapologetic self. And if someone couldn't handle that, that's their loss, not yours. They chose to walk away from a force of nature. They chose to look the other way when they should have been paying attention. And when they finally realize what they've lost, when they look back and see you moving forward with confidence, grace and strength, that's when they'll truly understand the magnitude of their mistake. They'll realize that the glow you had was never dependent on their presence. It was always there, waiting to be recognized. You don't need someone else to tell you you're worth it. You don't need them to validate your strength, your beauty, or your worthiness. The fact that they couldn't see that, or the fact that they chose to walk away, doesn't change your value. If anything, it solidifies it. Because someone who can walk away from something as genuine and rare as you, well, they were never meant to be a part of your story. So here's the reality. When someone leaves, they may think they've found what they were looking for. They might convince themselves that they're better off, that they're happier, that they've moved on to greener pastures. But you know what? They won't find anyone like you. They'll find someone who might fill the space for a while, but never in the same way. They'll find someone who doesn't bring the same energy, the same understanding, the same commitment. And deep down, they'll know that what they had with you was something real, something that could have lasted. But they let it slip through their fingers. In the end, your glow wasn't something they could ever take. It wasn't something they could control or dim. It's yours. And the moment they let you go, that's when they gave up their chance to experience it in its full brilliance. So don't mourn the absence of someone who couldn't appreciate you. Instead, celebrate the space they left behind. That space is yours now. It's your opportunity to shine, to grow, to become even more of the person you were always meant to be. And when they look back, realizing that the glow they once had in their life is gone, well, by then you'll be too far gone to care. Big mistake. You know, one of the hardest things to accept after someone leaves your life is the feeling of needing answers. You want closure, right? You want the moment where everything makes sense, where they finally explain why they walked away, why they couldn't appreciate you, why they chose to leave when all you ever did was love them. But here's the truth about closure. It's not something you're going to find in someone else's words. It's not something that's handed to you in the form of an apology or a long explanation of how they messed up. Closure doesn't come from waiting for someone to show up and make it all better. Closure comes from you realizing that you don't need them to validate your worth. When they walk away, it feels like 1,000 questions pop into your mind. Did I do something wrong? Was I too much? Should I have tried harder? You sit with those questions, playing them over and over in your head, hoping that by some miracle, you'll get the right answer. But the more you search for an explanation, the more you realize there isn't a simple one. Because the truth is, their reasons for leaving have very little to do with you, and everything to do with where they are in their own journey. We tend to think that if we just get the right explanation, if we just get the right apology, somehow that will fix everything. But what we don't realize is that this kind of closure only keeps us stuck. It keeps us tied to the past. It keeps us attached to someone who is no longer a part of our future. You don't need answers from them to move on. What you need is to realize that you have the power to close the door for yourself. You don't need their permission to heal. You don't need them to explain why they left, or why they couldn't see what they had when they had it. The only thing you need is the courage to let go, to realize that your worth doesn't depend on their understanding. Your strength, your beauty, your value doesn't diminish just because someone couldn't see it or couldn't handle it. And this is where the magic happens. Because when you stop waiting for someone to give you closure, you start giving it to yourself. You realize realize that the closure you've been searching for isn't something external. It's something that comes from within. It comes from acknowledging that you did your best, you gave your heart, and you were real. And if that wasn't enough for them, then it's not a reflection of your inadequacy. It's a reflection of their inability to recognize something amazing when it's right in front of them. Here's the thing, sometimes, the best closure comes from stepping into your own growth, from realizing that you don't need someone else to define your worth. It's found in the process of choosing yourself again. It's found in the moment you stop looking at the past and start focusing on the future, on the possibilities ahead. And I know it's hard. I know it's tempting to keep holding on to the idea that if you just get the answers, everything will be okay. But the truth is, you have to let go of that need. You have to release the idea that someone else is going to come along and make it all right. Because in doing that, you're giving them power over your healing. And they don't deserve that. The right closure comes when you look at the lessons you've learned, the strength you've gained, and the person you've become in the process. It comes when you realize that the love you gave wasn't a mistake, that you were always enough, and that just because someone didn't recognize your worth, doesn't mean it wasn't there. When you stop waiting for someone to explain themselves, that's when you truly begin to move forward. You start to see the future, not as a continuation of the past, but as an opportunity to create something new. And when you create that space for yourself, when you allow yourself to walk away from someone who couldn't value you, you begin to understand that your happiness, your peace, and your future are in your hands, not theirs. So don't wait for closure from someone who couldn't see what they had. Don't wait for them to validate your journey or make your pain go away. You are the one who has the power to heal. You are the one who gets to decide when it's time to let go. And when you do, you'll find that closure isn't something that comes from the outside world. It's something you've always carried within yourself. And if he couldn't see that, well, that's his mistake.